If 20 million people watch a video, it must be good, right? Not always. After this video, you will know if this was a good video or a bad video. And they are in a golden cage. It definitely makes sense.
The most obsolete idea is go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, and invest for the long term in the stock market. See, why would you save money when they're printing trillions of dollars? The gap between the 1% and 99% is massive. You see, it's not just money. You have to step back and look at the bigger picture.
So what do you do?
$1 million question, right? What do you do? I think he's absolutely right. That's getting a job, getting a paycheck. I don't know. I've never been a fan of it.
In every one of us is a poor person. There's still a poor person inside me. There's also a middle class person, and the middle class persons want security. They want that steady paycheck. And there's a rich person. And they're all inside of us, except that it's not taught. You're taught to go to school, get a job, and get a paycheck.
I wouldn't say that there's a person there. Well, it's a metaphor, of course. It would be a little bit funny, right, if there are all kinds of person walking in your head. But what we always tell people is that you have beliefs. Those beliefs, they create what he just said. So you have this belief where you say, okay, if you're rich, probably you're not honest. If you make a lot of money, it's probably because you blackmail people or you inherit it or that kind of stuff. It is true, but it's all about beliefs. If you want to do something with that, make sure you make a study about what it is that you believe, what are your beliefs and how do belief systems work, and why are belief systems hindering you or can hinder you.
You're not taught how to get rich. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my rich dad refused to pay me.
A must read for everybody. Poor Dad, Rich Dad. The other way around, but you get it.
He said the paycheck was one of the most damaging things you could take in your life. He says the moment you take a paycheck, you're an employee, and that's the mindset. So my rich dad never paid me. It drove my poor dad, government employee, nuts. You gotta pay people, you gotta pay people. And Rich Dad was not saying that the paycheck was bad. He says you didn't want to be a slave to money. So as an entrepreneur, if
there's so many people that live from paycheck to paycheck. And I get it, because nobody taught you. So I think I already understand why 20 million people watch this video. Because if you live from paycheck to paycheck, and if you believe that that's the way to move forward, then that will become your reality, right? Let's continue.
Rich Dad folded, I just started another company. I don't need a paycheck. I don't need anybody to take care of me. If my government doesn't like me, I move to another country because they need entrepreneurs there. So the entrepreneur is not so much the business. The entrepreneur is really the mindset and the skill set.
I started working for myself when I was 30 years old, and I had a very good job. I was working for a big telecom company, and my last paycheck was a very interesting one. And I remember that a lot of people said to me, why do you quit this job and start your own business? And I had this strange idea where I said, okay, but you know what? If I'm self-employed, I will always find a customer. I know what I can, I know what I'm good at, and it doesn't matter where I have to do that. I can always be successful with the skills and the craft that I can do. If you're employed by an employer, you can have it can happen to you that they will sack you, that they will fire you. And for me, it was always like, if you're self-employed, you're always in charge. You can always take control. If you're working for a boss, you're always depending on other people. Just give it a thought. Good stuff.
And a different set of rules. You see, small business does not operate in the same rules as big business.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Entrepreneur is a mindset first, a skill set, and rules.
I always ask people, how do you make people change their behavior in an organization? And what they always say, it starts with the mindset. And I always ask, okay, but what is a mindset? Where is it coming from? How is it possible that you are aware of the fact that you have a mindset? And the reason why I ask it is because, yes, for sure, it's the mindset. But how do you change it? And then I come back to what I already said. Mindset has everything to do with the belief system that you have. It's more about belief, because if you believe in things, you can unlock your potential. If you can unlock your potential, you will be able to learn new things and new skills and new knowledge. And if you do that, you will be able to change your behavior. If you change your behavior and perhaps even your attitude, you find it not difficult to deal with complex environments anymore. And then you will become very successful.
And depending upon whether you're an employee or a small business, the roles are different. The mindsets are different. The skill sets are different.
If you could say one thing to somebody who's never been an entrepreneur and they're thinking about making the leap of faith into becoming an entrepreneur, what could you tell them?
Just do it. Just do it. That would be my advice. I don't know if it's the smartest advice. Let's see what he has to say.
Well, I'll just tell them the same thing that happened to me. You know, my last paycheck, I still remember it clearly. It was one of the worst and the best days of my life. And I was...
That is so funny. I had the same experience when I was 30 years old. I was not in Puerto Rico, by the way. I was just in the Netherlands.
I was in Puerto Rico. I was working for Xerox, and my boss gave me my last, it wasn't a paycheck, it was a bonus check. I think it was about $30,000 taxable.
Why am I laughing? I also started in the copying business. When in 1993, long time ago, I started selling copying machines. Up till today, I'm still happy that I ended up in that industry.
That's the only problem with that. So I got this check and I went, holy mackerel. You know what I mean? So I was excited, but I was also disturbed. And so this other guy comes up to me, his name was John, and John says to me, he says, you're gonna be back. I said, why? He says, because you're gonna fail. I looked at him and said, look, few expletive words, because that's what he did. He left Xerox, failed, and he came back. And I said, look.
You've probably watched already many videos on motivation and how to get motivated and mindset. But the worst thing that you can do is listen to other people. He is so absolutely right. People sometimes just don't want you to become successful. They take away energy from you. Probably one of the worst things that you can do is to talk to people that try to get you out of your idea. It's your idea. The only thing that can happen, okay, if you fail, you start again. If you fail again, you start again. What's the worst thing that can happen? Especially in the society where we live in today.
You failed and you came back, but I'm gonna fail and I'm never coming back. And that's the attitude.
Love it.
Do you know what I mean? If you say, well, if I fail, I'll go back to mommy and daddy, then that's what you'll do.
If you start your own business and you already have the idea where you say, okay, I'm gonna try it, and if it fails, I can go back. Don't even start. Don't even try to do it. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive. You have an expression in the Netherlands where you say you burn all your ships behind you. But in a way, it's a good thing if you start your own business, because there's no plan B. Just have a plan A. Just go for it.
So if you fail, that's when I became an entrepreneur, because I had no money. I had no money for years. You know, I didn't have a paycheck. But that's what my rich dad encouraged me to do. He says, when you don't have this paycheck, you get hungrier, smarter, and it's a test of your character. Will you become a crook? Will you become dishonest? Will you cheat and steal? Or will you become a better human being?
Being self-employed is not always easy. And I really had some very tough years as well. But at the end, you make it work because you have to.
Really, that's the benefit of becoming an entrepreneur, is you really find out who you are when you don't have anything. So you always have to...
And not having anything is very relative. If you start becoming self-employed in the Western society, you always start with an idea. And if you believe in it, you will always find people that will buy it from you. Being self-employed really is a test for yourself. What can I do? Who am I? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do to level up? And it's a great journey. I see so many people who are in their 50s working for big corporates, getting big paychecks, and they are in a golden cage. And I always say to my wife, I even prefer to be poor, but be self-employed, than I get a big paycheck like that and just I have to do what other people are telling me what to do. Oh, I can talk about this for hours. I will not do that, but it's give it a thought. I think this world needs more entrepreneurs, for sure.
Look at the big picture. Too many people look at, well, what's going to happen to me? Well, you look at the big picture, you're also going to know that when something bad happens, something good's going to happen. But you got to prepare.
My dad always said to me, if a door closes, for sure a window will open up. Who cares? It's good advice.
Prepare for whatever is coming. If you think next 20 years will be like the last 20 years, you're going to get creamed. You know, when you and I go to the supermarket and we buy a carton of milk, we always check for the expiration date. But most people do not check for the expiration date on their brains. Instead of get out of debt.
That is true. I'm 52 years old. Right now I'm really working hard on my health because I've noticed when you become a little bit older, I wouldn't say things become more difficult, but you notice that you're getting older. I've read a study about how people find it difficult to see themselves in the future. But I think everybody should do this exercise where you sit down and think about, okay, now I'm 30 years old. How does it look like when I'm 60 years old or 65 or 70, when I'm this old man and I'm not capable of doing all the things that I'm used to do right now? How do you cope with it? How do you prepare for that?
I get into debt. You know, I just refinanced $300 million in debt. I went from 5% to 2.5% interest. I made a fortune. Every month, more money comes in.
I don't invest that kind of money, just to be clear.
Because my cost of money has gone down. So while some financial experts are saying get out of debt, I'm saying learn how to use debt. See, when I came back from in Vietnam in January of '73, the first thing my rich dad said to me was go to school to learn how to invest in real estate. It wasn't real estate, it was how to use debt and taxes. Debt and taxes make the rich richer. Debt and taxes make the poor, the middle class, poor. So all the rich guys who are doctors and lawyers or, you know, those guys, they're getting creamed and they don't know why.
I understand what he's saying. So for sure you need to invest. But for a lot of people, it's not so easy to get into the game, as I like to call it. I constantly ask myself the question when people come up with advice like that. Okay, but how? How do I make the first step?
They're getting creamed.
Oh yeah, they're making more money, but the take home is less.
Sure.
You know, my doctor just yelled at me. He was happy. He says, "Oh, guess what? I finally made $1 million." And I said, "Yeah, this was just 3 weeks ago." And so I said, "Yeah, well, how much you pay in tax?" He says, $750,000 in taxes. So his net was about $400,000. That's not bad. But when I make $1 million, I keep $1 million. And the reason is because I don't make it by working for money. See, if you work for money, you're taxed. So that's why lesson number 1 in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the rich don't work for money. What we do is...
I find it a little bit sketchy because I think we all need to pay taxes. It is true, if you are working for an employer, the amount of tax on labor is in some case ridiculous. On the other hand, a lot of studies shows that if you pay a lot of tax in a certain country where the taxes are high, the quality of life is always better, it's always good. Mixed feelings about this one. Unfortunately, or maybe good, I don't know, it is true, if you're self-employed, you have way more opportunities to lower your taxes than where you are employed. I'm not necessarily know if that's a good thing. You can call me a socialist, I don't know, but I think we need to pay tax. That's important. The thing is, we need to have good governance. We need to have a good government who takes care of this money and invest it wisely. That's also debatable.
Instead, as we create businesses as entrepreneurs, we acquire real estate. I don't invest in the stock market. Okay? So the reason is because as entrepreneurs, I have more control over my income, how much I make, and how much I pay in taxes. And because I'm an entrepreneur...
It is true. If you're in the stock market, you're not always in control. But you know what? If you buy some real estate, you can always find somebody who will rent it from you. You just have to pay some extra effort into it and you will find somebody who will take care of it. So I think with real estate, you're way more in control of your investment and to create wealth, basically.
As well as an investor in real estate, I pay zero tax. So every time I make, let's say...
That is something I find difficult. It's the same here in the Netherlands. If you have a lot of real estate, they're changing it a little bit. But you know, I truly believe at the end of the day, we need to pay taxes.
$1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invested in real estate and I have a 4-to-1 step up. So I put $1 million in real estate, I get $4 million from the bank. That's why I love banks. But the banks are screwing everybody else, you know, terrible, but it's good for me.
That's why you said when you print, it's good for you, but when you print, it's bad for people that work for money.
Because when you print, savers get creamed and people who work for money get creamed. When they print, debtors get rich. You see, debt and taxes make the rich richer, and debt and taxes make the poor middle class poorer.
He is right, but I'm always thinking about what's the message here. At the end of the day, we are living in a society. We need to figure out how we can live together, right? And living together means that we have to pay taxes. If all the advice is aimed at to avoid taxes, I don't know if that's the good advice. I have to be honest here. If I can do it, I also do it because I'm also an entrepreneur.
When we have obsolete ideas, we get obsolete results. So what's happening for most people, the idea of going to school, getting a job, working hard, saving money, getting out of debt, buying your house because it's an asset, investing for the long term, is obsolete. The world has changed. The world changed in 1971.
In 1971, I was born, and he's right. I think the idea is really obsolete.
When President Nixon took us off the gold standard and money became debt.
What if we get rid of school? Then what would happen? Would it be better if we had no educational system at all?
No, I'm saying education is more important before. It's just obsolete. You know, there's Moore's Law which states information doubles every 18 months. In other words, everything's obsolete 18 months. So, and this is just a recent phenomenon. So when you come out of school, you're already obsolete. And that's why I'm the old guy, you know. I meet my friends who went to Harvard. I say, I went to Harvard. I said, yeah, that was how long, 50 years ago? Today, the bank...
This is very simple. You need to go to school. You need to make sure you have an education. When you have your driver license, you finally have your driver license. In the Netherlands, it's quite hard to get your driver license. The real education starts when you have your driver license. Why? Because you need to practice it and you need to be skilled at it. It's the same within education. If you come from Harvard, the knowledge that you pick up there, probably is right, within 18 months it's obsolete. But the way what they teach you in university is how should you think and how should you look at certain problems. And therefore I think it's very important to go to university and to go to school. But you also need to remember that after you graduated, you constantly need to learn new things and new skills and new knowledge as well.
Banks are charging you interest to save money. In other words, banks don't want your money because they printed too much of it. And that's why there's this bubbles and
this printing money is also worrying me a lot, honestly.
Stocks and bubbles and real estate and all this. People are dumping the cash because, as I said in here, savers are losers and cash is trash. And yet people, well, I want a high-paying job. Well, that's an obsolete idea. Get out of debt is an obsolete idea. You should learn how to get into debt, how to use debt to get rich, and they'll never...
In the training, we have a program where we teach people about wish, duty, and goals. When we start the training, I always say, okay, if you're on wish and duty, 99% of the people are there in there, and you make something like 4 or 5 times average. And then a lot of people always react, say, oh, but if I can make 5 times average, that's a lot of money. But then I ask them to do the math, and they will see for themselves that even if you make 5 times average, after tax, you don't have so much money left anymore.
Teach you about taxes. The reason the 1% is way up here and the 99% are going this way.
We're talking about the same 99% here.
Is because when you print money, 2 things happen: inflation and taxes. It's going to crush you. And any entrepreneur thinks, I'm just going to make money and going to start a business and make a lot of money because of what we talk about. They really have got to smell the roses, man. You know, that's not what the real entrepreneurs are doing. Most entrepreneurs, there's 28 million small business owners in America. 24 million are what are one-person entrepreneurs. They're called non-employee entrepreneurs. So and that's what happens is when people don't really understand what an entrepreneur does. So most big people are self-employed, but they're not really entrepreneurs. The self-employed pay the highest taxes of all, and nobody tells them that. Yeah, it's also called the entrepreneurial spirit, but what we were actually talking about was there's no such thing as a bad economy. You know, there's the external, you and I, we all have an external economy, but we also have an internal economy. And the willpower is to change our internal economy. So for me, I can see the good and I can see the bad. I don't really give a damn because I'm going to be rich anyway. But a poor person with a poor...
I don't know. It definitely makes sense, but I want to break it down to the core. If you look at this guy, he is so convinced. So he has no issue with his belief system. And I think that's the key to success. I know that's the key to success.
Poor personal economy, all they're going to see is a bad economy because they don't know how to make money in any.
By the way, that's true. There's no such thing as a bad economy. It's your mindset that says, hey, but this is a bad economy. And if you say it's a bad economy, it's a bad economy. But in reality, it does not exist. I always oversimplify it by saying, hey, if you are Unilever or Shell, yes, of course, then it's important what the state of the economy is. But if you're a small company, there's so many opportunities out there.
Economy. And a middle class person, they have a middle class economy. You know, what they want is a nice house and a steady paycheck and the job and the car. And so when you take their job away, to them, that's disaster. Well, since an entrepreneur doesn't have a job anyway, it's no big deal. So all I'm saying to people, and it's what Bucky Fuller taught me, is always two sides, you know what I mean? Unity is plural, at minimum two. So if you think the economy is bad, it's because your economy is bad. If you think that steady, employment is important, then you'll see an economy without jobs. Your economy versus the external economy.
Your beliefs versus what it is that you are aware of. Interesting stuff, but complicated how he explains it. It's a great video. I understand why 20 million people watched it, because if you see this, the way how he presents it, I can imagine that you're saying, okay, I need to send this video to somebody else, and then the algorithm picks it up. It starts very strong, but at the end I was thinking, okay, what's your story here? Is it applicable for a lot of people? I don't think so. Anyway, if you like my comments on this video, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.